Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss the news that in the wake of Trump's trade war, Keir Starmer has announced that the government will be having a fundamental rethink of the assumptions it has made about the economy. Now, this opens the door to a whole series of potential changes to economic policy from what has been announced so far. And more than that, some of what Starmer has been hinting about could be massively good news. About time we had some. But first, for daily news and commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So various outlets were reporting on Keir Starmer's call for an economic reset yesterday. I'm now getting visions of Starmer sat at his desk in Downing Street surrounded by reset buttons. Seems to have taken over from toolmaker as his favourite word. But he also wrote an article for the Sunday Telegraph to set out his rationale. So what hints can we glean from it? Well, comments last night from various other outlets were about, is this talking about getting ready for further tax rises despite ruling them out, or changing the fiscal rules? Now, both are possible, but from what Starmer writes, that's clearly not the extent of it. Something bigger is certainly being prepared here. First, he begins by saying, it's worth quoting it, first it was defence and national security, now it is the global economy and trade. Old assumptions can no longer be taken for granted. The world as we knew it has gone. We must rise to meet the moment. Now, this is the second time that Starmer has linked together both the changing defence and security situation with the global economy. Starmer is making it clear, without being explicit, that Trump is a threat to Britain. After all, who caused this sudden change in defence, security and the economy? And why would we need to rise to meet the moment if it were not creating a national emergency? As I've said before, Starmer remains on very good diplomatic terms with Trump as our best chance of carving out the best deal trade-wise for ourselves, but also, it's worth remembering, defensively for Ukraine. But this opening paragraph makes it clear that the government not only recognised that Trump is a threat, for which there were clear signs months ago anyway, but that Starmer now wants to explain this to the public, albeit in a very nudge, nudge, wink, wink style, so as not to undermine that aforementioned diplomatic effort. In fact, I noted even Kemi Badenoch, when asked directly this morning on the BBC if America was a reliable partner, she wouldn't answer. The country is waking up to the fact that Trump has made the USA more of a threat than a friend, and even the Tories are unable or unwilling to counter this narrative. And the opening of Starmer's article is a clear indication that something big is going to change in terms of government economic policy. He went on to talk about how the country stood up for Ukraine and worked with international allies. All of this is sort of evoking this idea of there will be changes, changes to the way we do things. He said he would only agree a trade deal with the US if it was right for both British business and the security of working people. Clear references that we won't water down employment standards in line with Trump's policies, nor move ourselves inside the protectionist Trump bubble, cutting ourselves off from other markets. In fact, he then said that part of the response would be to reduce barriers to trade with other markets around the world. Of course, the low-hanging fruit there is the market right on our doorstep. Labour's Darren Jones actually was on the BBC today, and he was saying that they were in talks with the EU and Gulf states. So that suggests that that's where our efforts are focused. He said we're going to, Starmer this time in the article, we're going to turbocharge our plans to improve domestic competitiveness. Turbocharge, another one worth putting on the Starmer bingo card. He's used that before as well. Clearly no fan of the benefits of owning a thesaurus. But anyway, what does that mean? Well, the next thing he acknowledged was that some are uncomfortable with the idea of state intervening directly to shape the market, but that we cannot cling on to old sentiments when the world is turning this fast. Now, this statement's very interesting, isn't it? And it's much more interesting than it appears at first eye. Sure, the right wing are generally opposed to state interference in the market. Yes, of course. However, governments have done it before to no great fuss. The Conservatives did it during the initial phases of COVID, and Labour did it in the wake of the banking crisis. Neither felt the need to prepare the country for Keynesian economics, did it? After all, it's natural enough for a Labour government anyway, and even the Tories are happy to revert to it at need. So why did Starmer feel the need to describe it as something new and scary where he needed to calm fears? Is it just natural political timidity? Or is he thinking about a major intervention, the like of which we've not seen since the 1940s? The second may be more likely than you think. He specifically described this reticence about state interference as being responsible for decades of decline. That suggests to me that what he's doing here is not preparing the ground for emergency action, but using the emergency as an opportunity for major reform. Now, I fully recognise that given that this is something I would like to see, I am at risk of reading far too much into these lines and getting far too excited. I don't want to go all Midas touch and just hype the hell out of every little thing. But given that this is not an interview, this is an article, right? So Starmer has drafted it, he's improved it, he's changed wording, he's had people check it and go, oh, let's change that bit. It's been carefully considered. Every single word, every single punctuation mark has been carefully considered. I think every sentence has meaning. And when you talk about a way of thinking being, and that way of thinking being against state intervention in the market, being responsible for literally decades of decline, not just the last 14 years of Tory, that includes the last Labour government as well. What are we to suppose? Especially as any big change to the economic system cannot be a knee-jerk reaction. It must have been thought about for a long time. Remember, Trump had been thinking about his tariff plan for 40 years, and yet when he launched it, he still managed to fire it at penguins. How long must these plans have been considered? Because here's the thing. Starmer announces we're going to have a fundamental rethink of economic policy. If he meant literally that, he wouldn't be announcing the details of it later this week, would he? No, it'd be like, right, we're going to have a think about it and come back to you in a month's time. Because we don't have to rush to anything, do we? We've got a few months before the autumn budget. No, the fact that he can announce whatever it is later this week means they've been thinking about this for a while. Were they just waiting for an opportunity like this? Now, I also take account of the fact that this article was written for the Telegraph. I mean, almost all political groups and campaigners, including privately owned media outlets, they're some of the biggest campaigners of all, are happy to talk about decades of decline. Like, you know, you talk to the far left, the far right, the centre left, the centre right. Everyone says, oh, yeah, we've been in decline for decades. I mean, first of all, it's you know, evident. Not everyone agrees on what the cause of that decline was. You know, but the general message about decades of decline, completely uncontroversial. But the Telegraph pushed the idea that the decline was caused by too much state intervention, not too little. Despite the fact that these states, including Conservative governments, were way more interventionist in the time before this decline. But nonetheless, that is what they're told. So you might imagine that Starmer would have to lay it on thick even for just something as simple as like a tax rise, yeah? But the words will have been publicised elsewhere as well, and clearly intended as a pitch to the general public. During the Sunday morning interviews, you know, Darren Jones, Treasury Minister, talked about the end of globalisation. Badenoch disagreed with this. It can be taken as read, although the Tories are finding it difficult to describe Trump's government as reliable. It obviously does not follow they will support whatever Labour are planning to announce in terms of major state intervention this week. And the rest of the Telegraph article was an emphasis on the need for security for working people to be the cornerstone of any serious economic policy. Emphasised that multiple times. Also, the fact that they've made, you know, the moves they made on boosting rights and pay for workers. So, yeah, the implication is that he would be shaping his as yet unspecified new economic plan around that security for working people. Made that clear multiple times. So what do we know? We know that Labour are not wanting to leak any hints of the details right now, as they sometimes do that, but they're very tight-lipped today. That suggests final agreement with Cabinet is yet to be reached. We also know that it is going to take the form of major state intervention in the market. That was made explicitly clear in the article. Or at least significant. I guess, you know, whether it's major or significant depends on the way you view things. It's certainly something that needed the furrowed brows of Sunday Telegraph readers smoothing. We also know that you do not cobble together a major divergence of economic policy in a couple of afternoons. This is not something where it's like, oh, the tariffs, oh, they're not very good, let's work something out. No, we know that Labour have been anticipating this point for some time. I've said it many times before. The second it was announced Trump won the election last November, they instantly dialed down some of their more public criticisms of China's human rights issues, for example. Despite their rhetoric, They have clearly never been completely confident of riding out this storm. Indeed, Starmer characterising the familiar economic system as being over for good, that is a strong sign that they've been working on this for a while. I saw one suggestion that it would be that this would take the form of alignment with Trump on tariffs. Now, that would be a major state intervention in the market, and moves like this are always billed as protecting worker security. Sure, absolutely. However, it would be at odds with the statement about wanting to reduce trade barriers with other markets. Protectionism is about raising trade barriers, not lowering them, so I don't think so. But there are so many things it actually could be. Now, it's not guaranteed to be something that will appeal to me, but a lot of the possibilities would. We'll see. What do you think it will be? How bold will Labour be in challenging economic orthodoxy against this background of a new era? But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.